This is the HuaKastro 15.6-foot giant inflatable water slide park. I just wanted to share my experience with this in case anyone else is considering it. The size was the main thing I noticed. It measures about 15.6 feet by 15 feet and stands close to 8.7 feet tall. This takes up a large part of a backyard. I measured the area before setting it up, and I'm glad I did. I needed enough room for the inflatable itself, the blower, the water hose, and some open space around the sides. I set it up on level grass. I would not feel comfortable putting it on concrete or close to a fence. The slide exits and pool area need a soft surface around them. I also checked the ground for rocks, sticks, and anything sharp before unfolding it. The setup was manageable, but it still took some preparation. I spread it out, connected the blower, secured the stakes, and then attached the water tubing. The blower needs to stay running while the water park is being used. It inflated fairly quickly once everything was connected. The water tubing took a little more attention than the inflation. I had to make sure the lines were positioned correctly so the spray reached the slides and play areas. I also checked the connections for small leaks. It was not difficult, but it was more involved than setting up a basic inflatable pool. Once the water was running, the layout made sense. There are 2 slides, and each one has a climbing wall beside it. The slides are about 4.8 feet high. They are taller than the small inflatable slides I have used before, but they still feel intended for children rather than teenagers or adults. The 2-slide layout worked well when more than one child wanted a turn. There was less waiting, and the kids could race without trying to squeeze onto the same climbing section. I still kept an eye on them because children can reach the top at nearly the same time. It helps to remind them to leave some space before sliding. The climbing walls were more challenging than I expected. Older children handled them without much trouble. Smaller children needed some time to figure out where to place their hands and feet. The surface also becomes slippery when wet, so I stayed nearby when younger kids were climbing. The large pool at the bottom gives the kids another place to play between turns. It is not deep, but it collects enough water for splashing and cooling off. I noticed that the pool also helps slow them down after they come off the slides. Even so, I made sure the inflatable was sitting flat so water did not collect heavily on one side. There is a dump bucket near the upper area. Water fills the bucket and then tips down without much warning. The kids enjoyed wading underneath it, although some younger children may not like having water suddenly fall on their heads. The sprayer and water cannon gave them something else to use when they were not climbing. The small cave area was used more than I expected. It gave the kids a place to crawl through and take a break from the slides. It also added another activity without making the layout confusing. I could still keep track of where everyone was, but I checked the cave regularly since it is more enclosed than the other sections. The listed weight capacity is around 400 pounds. I treated that as a total limit, not a reason to load the entire structure at once. I was more comfortable with a few children using separate areas than having everyone crowd onto the climbing walls or the top platforms. The amount of space is useful, but supervision still matters. Compared with smaller backyard water slides I have seen, this one gives children more to do. A basic model usually has 1 climbing wall, 1 slide, and a shallow landing area. This one has 2 climbing sections, 2 slides, a larger pool, and several water features. That makes it more practical for siblings or a small group. The trade-off is that it needs much more space and more work after use. A smaller inflatable can be drained and moved without too much trouble. This one holds water in several areas, and the fabric needs time to dry. Cleaning up was the least convenient part for me. I disconnected the water, let the pool drain, and kept the blower running for a while to help remove moisture. I also moved the material around so trapped water could escape from the folds. I did not pack it away until it felt dry. That drying step is important. Folding a wet inflatable into the storage bag can lead to odors or moisture problems. On a warm day, I could leave it spread out and let the air circulate. If the weather changed suddenly, cleanup would be harder because this is a large piece of material to handle. The carrying bag helps with storage, although getting the inflatable folded down to a compact size took some effort. It did not slide back into the bag without careful folding. I would plan for 2 adults to handle it if possible, especially when the material is still damp and heavy. The fabric feels similar to other large backyard inflatables made with laminated Oxford material. It held its shape during use, and I did not notice major air loss. I still check the seams, climbing areas, and slide edges after each use. Those are the parts that receive the most pulling and pressure. Long-term durability was one of my concerns before using it. Inflatable products can develop small tears or seam problems if they are dragged, overfilled with children, or stored while wet. A repair kit is included, but I would rather prevent damage by setting it up carefully and checking the ground. I also made sure the stakes stayed secure. Wet ground can soften during a long day of water use, so I checked the anchor points instead of assuming they would remain tight. I would stop using it in strong wind. The blower and water hose should also stay in a dry, clear area where children will not trip over them. Noise is another thing to expect. The blower runs continuously, so there is a steady motor sound in the background. I stopped noticing it after a while, but it is not quiet. If the backyard is close to a neighbor's window, that may be worth considering. Water use can add up too. The sprayers do not need maximum pressure to work. I adjusted the hose until the slide stayed wet without sending more water into the pool than necessary. Lower pressure was enough for regular play and made drainage easier afterward. I think this makes the most sense for a family with a large, level yard and children around 5 to 12 years old. It is also useful when siblings or friends often play together. I would not choose it for a small yard, a hard patio, or a situation where one adult has to set it up and pack it away quickly. I would also not treat it as an inflatable for adults. The total weight rating may sound high, but the slide height, climbing walls, and landing areas are sized around children. I stayed off the play sections and focused on keeping the setup stable and supervising. My experience has been positive, mainly because the two slides reduce weighting and the kids have several activities to move between. The main downsides are the amount of yard space it requires, the drying time, and the need to inspect the seams and anchors regularly. I would recommend it to someone who has enough room and does not mind the cleanup after water play. It can keep several children busy, but it still needs active adult supervision and careful storage. If you have questions about the setup, water connection, space, or cleanup, leave them in the comments. I will leave detailed information about the HuaKastro 15.6-foot giant inflatable water slide park in the comments for your reference. Thank you for watching.